Alright, everybody, for today's critical thought, we're going to be discussing a simple but very important topic when it comes to developing any kind of action game, or pretty much just about any video game in general. And that is the idea behind a hitbox and a hurtbox. Now, there is a lot that goes into this kind of design. I'm not a programmer by trade. I'm sure there are programmers watching this right now who would be more than happy to talk about things in more detail. So definitely feel free to leave a comment down below. But hit and hurt boxes are an important element behind collision detection when it comes to a player and an enemy. When it comes to the player and the environment, that relies on a different kind of collision detection. But both use essentially an invisible box around the character, and there's an invisible box behind or around every environmental obstacle or detail in the game. This is why when a character comes to an invisible wall, that is simply just that invisible detection saying that no, you can't walk past that. And for advanced games, when we see people speedrun titles and they'll kind of pass through an object or they'll fall through something that's obviously solid, that's them kind of manipulating the invisible hitbox around them in relation to the environment. But when it comes to character and environmental details, that's a topic in of itself. For the nature of our talk, when it comes to hit and hurt boxes in a action game or any kind of player skill title, this corresponds to how the character and the enemies react to each other. Typically around every character, as we said, there's an invisible hitbox. This box is essentially a trigger that represents if the character is going to be hurt. The hurt box is yet another invisible box that, if it connects with the hitbox, registers the event of you've taken damage. And advanced play can also do a function data that will basically transfer the attack type to calculate, let's say, fire damage or lightning damage or you name it. But how this works is that the hitbox of characters usually remains consistent from beginning to end. Hurt boxes, however, are usually generated during an event. The only exceptions are when we talk about old school design games where if you touch an enemy, you're hurt. In that case, the enemy, instead of being surrounded by a hitbox, has a hurt box. So if I walk into a Spiky as Mario, I get hurt there. But in most cases, the hurt box is generated whenever the game registers that an attack has been performed. So if, let's say, I'm a character in a game and I throw my fist, as that fist is going to do damage, an invisible box is going to be generated around it to represent that hurt box. If it connects with the enemy gets hurt. When the attack is done, as my hand recedes and the animation plays out, this hurt box is deleted because it no longer exists. And this is a very important point when it comes to how things are generated and they work. For advanced games, you may have different hitboxes to represent, let's say, a weak point. So my head here may be a hitbox. But let's say I have a glowy bit right here that's maybe this big. So if you shoot this point, you do more damage. Let's say the event is triggered, critical hit doubles all damage done from this event. Now, to show things off, we're going to go on a little field trip to look at how hit and hurt boxes can be seen during a high-stakes action game. So, see you guys in a second. Alright, so this is taken from our Neo play that we just did, and this is one of my favorite bosses, the Giant Toad. And this is a fight that caused a lot of people trouble. However, once you understand how the hit and hurt boxes work for him, it's actually a very easy fight. But you'll see how things change on our second example. So I'm going to unpause it here. And I'm going to be doing frequent unpausing and pausing to talk about this. So the fight begins, and if you can see my cursor here, around our friend William here is our invisible hitbox. If an attack connects there, I'm going to get hurt. Now for this first attack, as he's winding up, his actual hurt box for the spear is going to be just this point here. So this collides with my body, I'm going to get hurt. But because I know how small that is, simply by dodging to the right there, I avoid it. Now that slam is a different story. Despite the point of the spear, there is an AoE around the frog. or the toad. So if I'm in any point of that hurt box, it's going to do damage, even though it doesn't look like I'm being hurt. So see, I'm going with my Odachi here, and my Odachi has its own hurt box as well to his hitbox. And because, again, I know how this guy operates in terms of where his hurt boxes are upon attack, this fight is very easy, and I believe I got through this without taking damage one time. I will be blocking a few times in a second, though, when he takes his pipe out. Now, pause right there. You saw that even though, again, that hurt box may be very small, but that was a very wide swing. And that's how it connected behind me. One of the more frustrating elements of games, even like the Soul series, is when an enemy will attack with such a wide swing that the hurt box actually extends from the front to behind the guy in a single animation. Oop, come on, there we go. Now he's going to be doing his little pipe attack here that is going to hit me. Wait for it. By a block, I should say. There we go. And you saw again that the hurt box connected with my blocking hitbox, and that's why it registered. So again, he's going to go, swing down, and we'll move on to the second example in about 2 seconds. So again, we dodge that. So again, you can see how the hit and hurt boxes are basically in correlation to each other. But we'll pause here, and because I know where the save points are and how small those hurt boxes can be, this fight was very easy. But we're going to fast forward to something much harder now. Now this fight in Neo is a similar but different. This is the Ogress. And this is a fight that causes a lot of people pain. The thing about her is that her actual hurt boxes are very, very wide. That attack right there is very misleading, because it's not just directly in front of her and a little further out, but it's actually to the side of her as well to do a massive slam. If you're caught by any of that attack, you're pretty much dead. Now her claws, there's another massive attack, can actually hit you from quite a distance. However, if you saw right there, by standing really close to her, her attacks whiff. And that's again because the hurt box is to the extensions of her claws, not to her body. However, I'm going to be dead probably in the next 20 seconds from this fight. Oh, here she goes again. And yeah, you always have to grossly over. Yeah, if you saw right there, actually, can I rewind that for a second? Let me see. I want to show this. So, you saw that I was kind of behind her, but underneath her. And her entire body during that attack becomes a hurt box. So if you're caught by any of it, there's not much you can do to avoid it. Now we'll fast forward slightly here, and I may just fast forward to me dying again. Let's see. So again, I know to stay close there. There's that slam. And again, her own hitbox is very big because of obviously how giant this fight is. Oh, there she goes again. And as always, I'm being very conservative in terms of how far I stay away. Now, and again, this fight is very similar to the Giant Toad, but it's a lot more dangerous due to just how wide her hurt box becomes during these attacks. And I'm pretty sure I'm about to die again in the next 10 or so seconds. But during this fight, or during any kind of action-based game, you always have to pay attention to the hurt box of an enemy in terms of their attacks. Because if you can't pick that stuff out, you're never going to know why you're taking damage. So here she's being stunned. I'm going to fast forward 5 seconds, so we don't have to see that. And again, she's coming down. Now, I think in this one, I get killed by her ultimate attack, which is, again, a massive hurt box. Let's see. Because I know I didn't beat her on this run. Spoiler for you guys watching this right now. Oop. Now, that was another weird case of the hurt box kind of just barely missing me. Now, we haven't talked about iframes yet, and we'll mention that in the next part or our final part for this video. I just want to see. Ooh. So again, now that time my iframe ran out, and I got caught by the end of that hurtbox or that animation. So I think this is where I get killed. Yeah, this ultimate attack right there. Now again, if you stand just right, it completely passes over you. But if you're just slightly in front of her, like you saw that second time, you get wasted. But let's talk about the importance of what this means in our final section. Now, the examples we've shown for hit and hurt boxes have obviously been from the action genre. But when most people talk about examining this data, it comes down to two very big ones, the shmup genre and fighting games. When you hear professional fighting game players talk about examining frame data, this is a major part of that, and understanding how fast attacks operate, and more importantly, where the actual hurt box of an attack is compared to the hitbox of your opponent. Because in many combat or many action-based games, the hurt box is usually rectangular or square, depending on whether 2D or 3D. What that means is that even though the attack may be round or wavy or anything like that, it's still being represented by a rigid structure, a rigid object. So there are parts in that hurt box or parts in that animation that you see that will not hit you or will not register a hit even if it connects with you. And being able to understand where are the safe spots to stand is an essential part of learning and mastering a fighting game. Because you may see an enemy perform an attack, but if I understand where the hurt box is of that attack, I know where to be to either avoid it or outright punish it. And being able to figure that out is vital. Now in the shmup genre, it's also very important, because one of the major aspects behind some of the harder examples that I think it's called Tuhu or maybe another name, is when the screen is just literally filled with bullets surrounding and swarming all over the place, and you have to stand just the right way so that your ship's hitbox will never come in contact with those hurt boxes. So, for instance, if you imagine my hand right here is a ship. Now, here's the entire model of the ship, but the hurt box may only be like right here. So let's say this is the actual hurt box. This is the entire ship. So you can have shots going like this or like this. And yes, they are touching my ship, but they're not touching the hitbox. And being able to get that down, especially in some of the hardest examples where it becomes pixel perfect, is critical if you want to stand any chance of beating these games. So, one final point and then we'll wrap things up. As a developer, you have to be really mindful of how your hit and hurt boxes are in relation to each other when you're building any game along these lines. Some of the more frustrating aspects is when you'll attack an enemy, but the attack doesn't register. Because even though you saw the attack hit the enemy or connect, it didn't connect with their hurt box. So for instance, let's say, again, like if I'm standing here, my hurt box, it comes up to here. So if you swing a sword and you hit me right along there, obviously that would kill me. But because of where the hurt box or my hitbox placement was, the game doesn't understand that. And this can become very annoying, especially if you're using very slow attacks that have a very specific hurt box to them. Or if the enemy has attacks that are so wide that they just connect no matter where they are. And again, some of the more frustrating games will have an enemy whose hurt box is bigger than the actual animation. So let's say I do a karate chop, and instead of being the hurt box just being like around my hand, it could come out to here. So obviously the hand is not representing the actual attack, and that can make things very frustrating. In many cases, it can be seen as cheap design to do it like that. But that's going to do it for our critical thought. So for any programmers watching this, what are your thoughts on the challenges of designing the hit and hurt boxes for a game, and how they factor into the balance of your gameplay? Let me know in the comments below, but thanks again for watching, and be sure to check back for daily discussions on game design here, and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. And if you want to talk more about game design, we have our Discord channel linked below. But until next time, have a good night. Before we get to the credits, just a quick shout out to the supporters over on patreon.com/GWBycer. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. If you'd like to suggest games for me to cover or topics to talk about, let me know in the comments below. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on design, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the Game Wisdom Patreon, you can find us on there on patreon.com/GWBycer. $1 will get you into our private Discord channel where we talk game topics and more. $5 will get you voting privileges for any major event, including the Saturday Night Grab Bag, Patreon-funded goals, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy more videos here on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel.